I was feeling self-hating and grumpy at 6 months sober when Joanna asked me to her house for a dinner party. Scared I might walk by a bar, I stayed indoors and was suffering from such an acute case of cabin fever that I decided to accept the invitation rather than stay home and practice my overeating and internet shopping. I set out for Joanna's with carefully calibrated expectations, like, don't be outright opposed to having a good time. Still, within moments of my arrival, just after the first awful question had been asked, what can I get you to drink? I came to a sudden and horrible conclusion. People hate alcoholics. It's not that I expect special treatment, but if you invite me over for dinner, maybe buy some club soda. Diet Coke. I don't expect a refrigerator full of hundreds of flavors of Snapple, sodas in every hue, or Japanese novelty beverages, but something other than water would be nice. There was nothing worse than when Joanna turned to her guests with flourish and listed our options. We have wine, beer, whiskey, gin and tonics, or homemade tequila punch. Sacha, can I get you some water? She might as well have said, I've spent hundreds of dollars on exciting beverages for all of my guests but you. You, however, may have this lead-based city water I found coming out of the tap in my bathroom. Honestly, she wouldn't serve venison to her vegetarian friends, would she? Seething, I pulled the baguette and cheese board to my side of the table and gave Joanna's other guests sidelong, dirty looks when they reached for a piece. Don't even think about it. Cheese is my cocktail, bitch. Drink your tequila punch and leave me alone. I ate my bread and water like a prisoner while the others drank their spirits. Little did I know, the worst was yet to come. Dinner, sang Joanna from the kitchen. Coco vin. Fuck me. From the other end of the table, Joanna whisper screamed, don't worry, Sash. The alcohol has totally cooked off. And gave me a wink. Now, in addition to being the dinner party cheese hoarder, I had to deflect questions about when the baby was due and explain that I am not pregnant, just a raging alcoholic. It's an excellent way to silence a room. I heedlessly crammed a forkful of coq au vin into my mouth, and then it happened. Despite all assurances that the alcohol had cooked off, that my body was not actually ingesting any alcohol, every neuron, synapse, and nerve ending in my brain stood on end and screamed with the full-bodied fervor of the born-again, while a 36-member gospel choir somewhere between my ears broke out into song, I remember this! But while my brain rejoiced, my tongue rebelled. Like a small child first tasting the bitter heat from a cup of coffee, I had no taste for alcohol. While the other guests cleaned their plate, for me each bite tasted distinctly pungent. A few months on the wagon, and my taste buds had completely reset. Instead of the velvety bite of red wine sauce, my entire mouth was awash in an odd fermented flavor with hints of vinegar. The meal tasted to me as it might to a 3-year-old. And, like a 3-year-old, I spit the chicken into my napkin, humbly turning my attention back to my bread and water. Alas. The evening grew really dire when dessert was served. Who wants my famous no-bake amaretto cake? Cooed Joanna, while tears rose to my eyes. No bake? The alcohol wouldn't have even fake cooked off. This was simply a course I could not have. And I mean, if I'm going to relapse, it was not going to be on some dessert inspired by Joanna's latest jaunt down the aisles of Williams-Sonoma. Seething, every part of me yearned to cry, to scream, to beg Joanna to explain to me how she could be so insensitive. Hey, Joanna, I telepathically hollered, don't serve alcohol to a fucking alcoholic. It's just cruel. And that is when it occurred to me that Joanna must not like me very much. Perhaps this whole evening was just a scheme to slowly drive me mad. I began to shut down a little then. I felt padlocks clamping down across my soul. Walls were erected, defenses deployed, all in an effort to keep the rising alcoholic monster at bay. My anger had awakened a beast, and I was craving alcohol now, even that pungent coq au vin sauce. Give me the pan, I thought. I'll lick that shit clean and then guzzle the bottle of cooking wine next to the sink. And behind a stony facade, I held on tight, squeezing my sobriety until it bled while a war raged under my skin. The next day, as I was ranting to a friend about Joanna's excessive cruelty, she was intentionally fucking with me. My friend replied, I don't think this really has anything to do with you. Not about me. That felt right. Joanna loves to cook. She finds it impossible to do so without copious amounts of alcohol. It had nothing to do with me. Indeed, subsequent visits to Joanna's house have proved that everything she serves is invariably soaked with alcohol, from her Campari salmon to her Grand Marnier fondue. And yet, I keep getting invited back. And while this might seem intuitive, but it took me a while to get, I keep getting the invitations because Joanna likes me. It turns out that people don't invite you over when they hate you. Fascinating, right? Finally, rather than mini relapse every time I go to Joanna's, I did something unique. I told the truth. I just can't handle the taste of booze, even when it's cooked off. I told Joanna as I pushed my penne pasta alla vodka around in its bowl. It's funny how such a big issue for me, something that had stormed through my mind, prompting me to bouts of rage and to make speeches and closing arguments to the demons in my mind, could not have been less of an issue for Joanna herself. Makes sense, said Joanna. Guess who has never served me alcohol again? People are so much nicer than I think they are.